On today's episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, grading Nick Caserio 3 years into his tenure as the Houston Texans general manager.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Friday episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Game Time app. I am your Texans football analyst, John Some Sports Guy Hickman. And, of course, joining me, as always, is your Sports Illustrated's Texan credentialed media member, beat reporter. All of that brought to you
Yes,
guys.
sir.
Cody Davis. Thank you guys for stopping by for today's show. If you are new to the Locked On Texans podcast, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast as well. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texans. Today's show, we're diving back into the YouTube comments. That's going to be fun, of course. We're grading Nick Caserio 3 years into his tenure. But we're kicking off today's show looking at the Texans bringing back players due to injuries and filling out this roster. Thursday, Juice Scruggs was placed on IR, so he will miss the first 4 games of the year at least, along with, I know it's rough, along with punter Cameron Johnson. So the Houston Texans did bring back Michael Data, sign him to the practice squad. I expect for him to be activated soon to the 53-man roster. Of course, we talked about Mike Boone and Corey Littleton also being signed to the active roster as well. So between between Juice Scruggs going on IR and Houston bringing back Michael Data, a player who I was shocked and surprised a little bit that they moved on from him after the preseason. You got Jaret Patterson, who we'll talk about a little bit. The Texans bringing back players, Cody, what does that mean right now?
It really means more so for this offensive line. And look, I know in the second segment we're going to talk about, grading Nick Caserio going into after 3 years, but the one thing I would give Nick Caserio in terms of this offensive line, the man is trying. He couldn't foresee the fact of losing Scott Quisenberry and Juice Scruggs and Titus Howard. Now, look, we already talked about it on yesterday. The man did say that it was somewhat of a possibility that they could lose Kenyon Green, dating all the way back to May. However, this guy is trying, and I do like the sense of urgency that Nick Caserio and head coach DeMeco Ryans is doing, trying to make sure that they try to beef up this depleted offensive line as much as possible. Because the one thing that you and I've been harping on a lot is the fact that week 1. Regular season in Baltimore, you will be playing with a rookie quarterback who we definitely believe has a bright future here with this organization. However, you want to make sure that you set him up right. And I like the fact that they brought back Michael Data. I know that might be a shock given that he was one of the guys that I kept saying it ain't looking good throughout training camp. However, I go back to that drive, the final drive of that Saints game, where the Texans played their starters, and I saw how well that offensive line was working. The offensive line was able to help C.J. Stroud move the ball down the field. Same thing with Dameon Pierce, rushing the ball, moving the chains with his legs. Like, that is what you want to see out of the offensive line. And bringing back Michael Data more than anything brings the little bit more stability, because you definitely saw that all 5 of those guys were starting to get on one accord, and that's definitely what you want: stability and chemistry.
Yeah, so looking at Michael Data coming back, the next question, guys, is what does this mean for Jaret Patterson? If you guys remember coming out of Notre Dame, Jaret Patterson has experience at both left guard and center. The 2 major question marks right now surrounding this team, now that Kenyon Green will be out, Michael Data is coming back. However, you're looking at Kendrick Green coming over from Pittsburgh. is he a depth piece, or is he a guy that Houston is going to try to actually give him an opportunity to win over maybe that center or guard position? You're also, again, looking at Jaret Patterson, who is a damn good center when he was at Notre Dame, also very good at left guard. One of the things that I like from Jaret Patterson when I go back and look at some of his college film and that game against the Saints this past weekend, I like that he always has his head on the swivel, and so this allows for him to be very good at picking up the blitz, and I love his hand usage and placement along with a very good kick step for inside offensive linemen. So I like that element from Jaret Patterson's game. Houston does have a dilemma on their hands simply because you got 2 weeks. You got a week now, honestly.
Like, you got less than 2 weeks.
you don't have a lot of time until September 10th. That's rolling around in 9 days, right? And so looking at what Houston had to do, it was a smart decision, of course, to bring back Michael Data. He was a guy that at the very least understands what this team wants to do and execute, and he's been out there with Dameon Pierce. He's been out there with Devin Singletary. He's been out there with C.J. Stroud. So that makes sense, and I wouldn't be shocked if week 1 we see Data as a starter. That center position as of right now, I think is for Jaret Patterson and Jaret Patterson's alone. Honestly, I think throughout the next few days of practice, guys, Jaret Patterson and Cody, you'll be out there. So whatever information or whatever you see, of course, is going to be brought back over to the Locked On Texans podcast because he is your beat reporter, right? But I think he'll go out there and win that job, right? And I think that whenever Juice comes back, Patterson's play, it may make him startable. And maybe not at center, but depending on what we see in those first 4 games, now that Juice is going on IR, and this is a situation, maybe Houston looks at it like this. Okay, you know what? We kind of mismanaged Kenyon Green. If Juice isn't 100% ready, we're not going to do it twice in the same span of a month, right? So maybe he sticks on IR, but hopefully you want to see that young man back. I also like Houston bringing Data back because at the very least, you get an experienced veteran out there with who I presume would be your starter, Jaret Patterson at center, a rookie. And so we talk a lot about Houston and Nick Caserio's failing to get insurance, bringing Data back. May not have been that big insurance payoff check you was looking for, right? Whenever you get into a little fender bender, it may not have been that $1,200 that you was looking for, but it's a cool $800 and you'll be able to do something with it. So that's some good insurance along that offensive line that has Laremy Tunsil, vet, Titus Howard whenever he comes back. George Fant is going to hold down that right tackle position. So that vet will be over there. Shaq Mason, vet. You don't want too many youngsters on that offensive line. I like it. And I think Jaret Patterson, like I said, is going to win this starting position at center. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use. Listen, you can bet on everything from the spreads, the player props, and much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
And just the opportunity to go out with a new group of guys, set a new standard, set a new culture. Talk to me, Mitch.
I think it's kind of the same thing. All the guys and characters we got in the locker room, I'm ready to get on the field and let it rock out for us. How it come to life.
Well, y'all heard it here first, man. We're ready for week 1. Make sure y'all tune in, man. Watch these boys ball out. And, man, go Texans. Appreciate y'all, boy. Appreciate my brother.
That boy Clark.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Full circle to be the captain of this thing, man.
It's exciting, man. I'm fired up. Not too many times you get an opportunity to be the head coach of the team you play for, and I get to work with great players like yourself. That makes my day even better.
One more question, Coach. What values as a player that emulate your coaching style?
Hard work, right? Dedication, just that drive to be the best at what you do. Right? We don't want to be satisfied just to be in the NFL. We want to be the best at what we do, and that's what we strap it up in. And that's the drive I'm looking for my players.
And I can attest to everything he said. Great coach, even better person though. Even better person. Excited for the year.
It's the man, right?
Excited for the year, Coach. Appreciate you, baby.
Excited, baby. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Doing great.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Friday installment of Locked On Texans. What you guys just heard, what you guys just saw was Dameon Pierce, the quote-unquote new Texans team reporter. The Houston Texans had an opportunity to hold their second annual season premiere at NRG Stadium, and Dameon Pierce did a phenomenal job switching over to the media side. As a matter of fact, after everything was over, I pulled DP to the side and asked him, hey, you trying to steal our job or something like that? He said, man, I'm thinking about getting a little side hustle in the media business. So Dameon Pierce, if you run across this, look, me and John, we've been holding down Locked On Texans for what, about 4 seasons now?
Yeah.
We will be honored to have you as our third co-host. I'm just throwing it out there.
Absolutely. You know, one thing I like about Dameon Pierce, man, energy. It's infectious.
Man, the energy, man.
It is infectious.
The energy. Oh, it's by the way, talking about Texans media members, you was the very first one to learn about that energy that he had. I'm just throwing it out there.
Hey, when I talked to him way back when, it
Senior Bowl
transferred over to me. I brought it to y'all, and now he's in the city of Houston. And one thing that you really enjoy about Dameon Pierce is really his openness. And it seems like he never met a stranger. So, you know, as a reporter, Cody, you can attest to this. That's one of the things that you like from a player, because they'll bounce off with you with their energy. So I love that out of Dameon Pierce. Looking at 3 years in Nick Caserio's tenure so far.
Oh man,
how are we grading him?
If we had to grade him, let's say let's take it back to school. A, B, C, D, F.
And by the way, this is the school we grew up in, because now they got the grade skills all kind of weird. Like, in 81 is an A for some kid. No, 80 to 89 is a B. 90 to 99 is an A. You know, we not gonna curve. We doing a regular
curve.
No,
and we can also put incomplete as well. I put incomplete because there's been times where we got the paper back and it said incomplete. But look, man, if I could grade Nick Caserio as of right now, heading into his third year, I would say a C plus at that. Understand the last couple of days we really been harping on Nick Caserio, how, you know, regardless how you feel about Kenyon Green, you know, let's call it what it is. It was a missed opportunity. Traded back in the 2022 draft to draft that young man, and he hasn't panned out as of right now. You know, and Nick Caserio, he has had a lot of misses more than hits. And some of the hits that he had, i.e. drafting CJ Stroud, I wouldn't necessarily give him that in terms of grading him, because look, you had the number 2 pick and it was either Bryce Young or CJ. So it wasn't really, you know, nothing that you could mess up as of right now. I still believe that it's hard to grade him from the 2021 draft class, because as we all know, that's when the Houston Texans draft capital was terrible. Your very first pick came at pick number 69, and you had to use it on the quarterback, given everything that was going on with Deshaun Watson, you know. And look, I understand.
Bill O'Brien did a number on the Texans, dog.
Boy, I tell you, they finally tried to clean up that mess from that entity, but you are still reaping the benefits. And look, Davis Mills, I understand it. He's part of the reason why you had to go out there and draft CJ Stroud. However, I still think drafting CJ and getting somebody like Nico Collins in that 2021 draft pick, when you had arguably, if not the worst draft capital of the entire league, I would definitely say that Nick Caserio did a really good job handling things that was outside of his control, especially how the way he was able to maneuver that whole situation with Deshaun Watson, trade him, get a lot of draft capital. However, the one thing that concerns me about Nick Caserio is the things that he can control. That's where I say it's a lot of misses. You take a look at the trades that he was able to make, and a lot of those players that he brought in via trade or free agency did not pan out. John, you already know how I felt about this a lot last year. You had moments where you brought several guys into this organization that could have helped the production of this team last year, i.e. the Johnson brothers, i.e. when you brought in what's my guy name, the running back that they cut. We all thought for sure without a shadow of a doubt. Marlon Mack. You brought in Marlon Mack. Like, you brought in some qualities guys. I'm not going to sit here and say that they would have got you into the playoffs. However, they would have saved this organization from being a laughingstock that they have been over the last 2 seasons. However, you brought these guys in, and it seemed like you did not give them a fair opportunity. So that's why I say, as of right now, grading Nick Caserio, I would give it a C. In my opinion, there's still a lot of moves that he has made that we're still like, okay, how is this going to play out? And I think going into the 2023 season, the biggest one is Darius Stingley Jr. You drafted him 1 spot ahead of your boy, Ahmad Sauce Gardner.
Yeah. You know, remember when Nick Caserio traded Bernard McKinney to the Dolphins for Shaq Lawson, and Shaq Lawson didn't make this team on a team
another one he had control over?
Yeah. Or remember the extension for Rex Burkhead in the middle of the season. Remember that? So I think a C is fair, honestly. A C for Caserio is fair. I would go as far as to say, if I am, and this is me really kind of judging on the curve, a C plus would be fair. I think the plus comes in how this offseason has went so far. Regardless of how we felt about the Kenyon Green and, you know, whether or not Derek Stingley is going to pan out, which I think we all believe he will. This offseason was pretty good, right? Landed DeMeco Ryans, put together with DeMeco Ryans a hell of a coaching staff. He gets credit for that. He gets credit for bringing in, you know, on the same page with DeMeco Ryans. I think he gets credit for that. How they went about free agency, Dalton Schultz, right? You look at one of the more underrated moves was making sure that you kept Steven Nelson.
Most definitely.
You bring in Shaq Mason, you trade for Shaq Mason. The draft, as you mentioned, but Cody, goes back to what you said, the things that his decisions, and he has overvalued picks, right? I mean, he's made trades, and those trades is kind of like, what are you doing? Maybe you could have got this player for a cheaper price, or when the player was cut. He's also the draft has been questionable, right? 2021, that's in the drain. 2022, Stingley, I think, is going to pair out. Kenyon Green is going to be a huge mark because Kenyon Green was the first of the Deshaun Watson trade package.
Yeah, he was. Right? He was that very first draft capital.
Right. So that's a question mark. You still got to attach David Culley. You still attach Lovie Smith to him, honestly. And you still attach when he arrived, not immediately, if not firing him, removing all of his power and say so in Jack Easterby.
Yeah.
So,
which I wouldn't put necessarily all of that on him with the Jack Easterby thing, because that went a little bit deeper than Nick just coming. I just wanted to throw that out. That's true.
And if we go back to some of the things that was going on behind the scenes, that's 100% true. I also hold how Nick Caserio has truly failed to not only examine, but bring in NFL talent at the receiver position since he's got here. Honestly, I think that coming from where he's came from in New England, I know this from experience, the amount of undervaluing of the receiver position is ridiculous. And if you look at Nick Caserio's tenure so far, he has failed to adequately bring in real talent at the NFL, at the wide receiver position. Go back, like you said, to the Johnson brothers, Tyron Johnson, and was it Tyrone and something like that? You better call them. So neither one of those guys, they went through ramp-up periods for 3 weeks. Neither one of those guys had an opportunity to do something for this team. And this was a team, at one point, I think they had 4 healthy receivers on their roster. Right?
At the start of last season.
This was a team that at one point prioritized Rex Burkhead over much better options. And because of them doing that, you got to ask yourself, well, why is Rex Burkhead here in the first place? Well, the year before, got that contract extension, I think in November or December, something along those lines. And so I will not take away what Nick and company has been able to do this offseason. But I will put on his plate when judging him, hey, man, you have really failed this offense by not bringing in some good receivers, honestly. And we got to wait to see what this receiver group does. Robert Woods, I think, is a guy that I would expect to have a decent year for who he is as a receiver. Nico Collins is the guy that I want to see, and I'm forced to see him actually do it this year because there's no more Davis Mills as an excuse. There's no more Pep Hamilton. There's no more Tim Kelly. There's no more none of those excuses. This is a year for you to, at the very least, 800 yards, 6 TDs, right? I think that's the bare minimum for Nico Collins. But outside of Nico, and I don't even think we can place Nico in that category yet because he's only had 3 touchdowns and I think 500 total yards since he's arrived in the NFL, something along those lines. So he hasn't blown away. And you look at some of the players that could have went in that spot. You traded up for Nico Collins. You traded up for John Mechie. You traded up for some of these players, and they have not panned out. C+ is fair. I think by the end of the season, that will determine whether or not it's a B and above or a C-, and we may got to talk about your tenure here for real now and your employment moving forward. But I like what he done so far this offseason, and I think this offseason was a good addition to the foundation building off of last year. Buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all of the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you with killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guaranteed. Listen, you can stop stressing over tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you're going to have at some of these events. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and much more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find a ticket in the same section or row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. You cannot beat that. So download the Game Time app and create an account. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Before we close out today's show, Cody and I are taking a trip over to the YouTube section of our lives. YouTube comments, Cody, my man, Reggie5108. I don't understand the King cut. This is about Desmond King. Is it just about cap space or what? I'm confused from a talent and depth standpoint. Would you like to take that one?
Yeah, Desmond King, of course, was the biggest surprise for everybody, especially when you take a look at, I guess if we could put together like a top 10 player over the last 2 years, I think Desmond King would definitely be on that list. He's a guy that really stepped up, regardless of what was going on with this organization over the last 2 years. However, I was told that there were some things going on behind the scenes that kind of played into the decision to cut ties with Desmond King. So I'm not going to get into all that. However, it was a little bit more than the X's and O's and everything that took place on the gridiron. However, speaking of Desmond King, he did get picked up by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So maybe that could be somewhat of a revenge game. What is that going to be? Week 4 of the regular season. So, but shout out to Desmond King, was really a really solid player for this organization.
This is David Williams 912, and not only David Williams, but it's I saw a few of these comments on YouTube and on Twitter as well. Trey Green. Listen, here's my stance on everything. I think an NFL player, unless you're Alex Leatherwood, I think an NFL player deserves 3 years. And actually, Alex Leatherwood has been in the league, I think, 3 or 4 years now. But I think what makes the Green situation so worse is that the number on his jersey is 59. And you got 59 North is where he's from. And you come to Atascocita and Humble. And so being a hometown kid, because when you look at the other hometown kid who we don't talk about, because we don't have to talk about him in the same light as Kenyon Green, Jalen Petrie, right? And so Jalen Petrie is a fan favorite, and he's a hometown kid, and he's loved. And, mainly because he had a stellar rookie year. He's on pace to be have a stellar sophomore year, maybe Pro Bowler, maybe All Pro, who knows? But the difference in those two players is one is panning out, the other one isn't. But I think it's unfair to say trade them right now. And here's another thing, right? There are things going on that y'all don't need to know about. But if we are looking at the situation the Houston Texans are currently in, scrambling to try to figure out how they're going to get this offensive line depth taken care of, I don't think trading Green whenever he can be tradable, right? He's out for the year, cannot be traded. But I don't think whenever Houston comes back and whenever he comes back and he's ready to play ball again, I don't think trading him is smart simply because at the very least, unless some team comes calling, and they're offering something that makes 100% sense for Houston to move on from him. And I'm still a guy that want to see him do well. At least give him one more year in Houston to see if he can pan it out. But they're going to at least need some bodies on that offensive line just in case, right? And so I'm against trading Green. I am. I'm with him taking the year off. I wish it wasn't a full year. I wish he would have got an opportunity to showcase his improvement or lack thereof, right? We don't know if he was going to go out for 17 games and play 17 games or whenever he came back, be healthy enough to be effective for his team. But let's just hold off on the trade Green talk, right? Just hold off on that. Oh, here's a good one. Black Rain, 48-7. You guys need to stop saying the Texans don't have receivers. Let these guys play and develop. Texans are the only team that don't play their young players. Can't keep bringing in players on their downside. All I hear is complaints before these guys ever play. Go through the process and stop wasting draft picks. Oh, listen. I mean, okay, this isn't a team where you got Tom Brady, he can pretty much do everything with whoever's out there. Right? It's not that case. Not the case with Aaron Rodgers. And even with Aaron Rodgers, for the most part of his career, he has some good receivers out there in Green Bay. Houston has failed to bring in top talent or draft top talent at that wide receiver position. Right? So I know a lot of you guys are holding out hope for John Mechie. I am too, but the facts remain right now. John Mechie, I think he had 10 yards total in the preseason. Didn't play that last game, right? And so, yes, we can count what he can be against this offense because we haven't seen it. Nico Collins, high hopes. However, like I mentioned, 500 yards or so, maybe 600 and 3 touchdowns in 2 years. Everybody else in the NFL, when you look at how they're taking these quarterbacks that are young and building around them, what are they doing?
Getting the number one wide receiver.
And putting significant talent around them. Even when I look at what's going on in Tennessee, right? They traded for DeAndre Hopkins, and last year they drafted Traylon Burke. And so we have to be honest and honestly say the Houston Texans wide receiver group as a whole is underwhelming to this point. And I think that's fair. I think if there's one receiver that hasn't been underwhelming since he's arrived to Houston, has been the player that's been in Houston for the past 3 or 4 years, right? When you look at Tank Dell. So everything else, it's underwhelming. And even for Tank, he hasn't played a regular season game yet. So we still got to pump the brakes on that as well.
I'm not going to take too much time on this because I said this yesterday when we talked about the wide receiving core. I feel better about it now than I did going into training camp, only because I can see the growth and potential in someone like Nico Collins. I I think Noah Brown has been, in my opinion, better than advertised. The amount of times I actually seen him go out there on the practice field, showcase what he can do. And John, you already said it. The one guy that's basically been blowing everybody away since rookie minicamp basically has been Tank Dell, a guy that's basically been in the city of Houston over the last 3 to 4 years. I feel better about it. However, I just wish they still had that go-to wide receiver, because the one thing that I would give this wide receiving group, on any given day, any one of these receivers can step up and be CJ Stroud's primary target. And like I mentioned on yesterday, I think that's going to be a good situation for the Texans, because they're not going to be in a position where you say, okay, let's double team DeAndre Hopkins, get him out the picture, and let a rookie quarterback in Deshaun Watson go to work and see if he's able to spread the ball around. No, you're not going to have that. And I think that's going to be better for the Texans. However, with a rookie quarterback, you want to make sure that you give him some of the top tier talent at that position. And John, to your point, what is something we have been seeing a lot of teams do? I mean, just take a look at the Buffalo Bills. Once Josh Allen made the statement that he was going to be that team franchise quarterback, what did they do that same offseason? They went out and got Stephon Diggs. Now, hopefully that situation, end up being a little bit better than what's been going on throughout the offseason. But we have seen it time and time again. However, to that same point, maybe CJ Stroud showcased that without a shadow of a doubt, he is this team franchise quarterback, rather this year or next year, that we could finally see Nick Caserio or whoever the general manager is go out there. Okay, let's make sure that we boost up our wide receiving core.
Yeah, I don't think it should take for you to wait.
Like I said, I'm only just based off how the NFL been going over these last couple of years. I mean, just take a look at Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence, and then next thing you know, you go and get Calvin.
Well, with Jacksonville, when Trevor Lawrence first got there, they also had an Urban Meyer that kind of blew up everything. Like, so when I'm looking at, I just think in modern football, how the receiver position is valued, Nick Caserio has done a very bad job. And you know who else has? His boy, Bill Belichick. Thank you guys for listening to today's show. Make sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Texans. Subscribe, like, and comment wherever you get your podcasts as well. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. I actually got a new follower today. My man plays football. I think he plays college football somewhere. Go find this tweet, man. He tweeted me earlier. I'm sorry about that. Can't find it.
Bill Belichick.
Oh, Thomas Schrader. Shout out to my man Thomas Schrader.
And hey, it don't matter. It didn't matter who was lining up for the wide receivers in New England. You had the GOAT. It don't matter who he played with. He was the GOAT.
Yeah, that was 4 years ago.
But as always, Cody M. Davis. Follow me on Twitter at Cody Davis _24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.